This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap.
Class is dismissed. Have a great summer, but wait, before we do, we have to talk about the Hungarian GP. It was hot. It was a little more crazy than we used to think of, and we had a winner who I don't think any of us predicted coming into the weekend. That's for sure. All right, you found the Outlap F1 podcast. This is season 8, episode number 18. It's our 2026 Hungarian GP review show. Got Andy. I'm along with Mr. Cody tonight. Cody, I am glad that we both have our lights on as we are once again picking up the pieces of another crazy storm day. But how are you holding up? I'm glad you're holding up okay. And I'm glad we both got our lights on. But how's it going?
I am doing well. I am very happy that, at least for me, this latest storm really didn't have that much of an effect, both at home and at work. But yeah, some people close to me definitely had to deal with the craziness, and I'm glad everyone's doing well. But yes, I am ready for the wild summer weather to be over. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. I've lived here my whole life. I have never seen repeated waves like this. Like, I've seen bad storms, and they come around once a year, and then you're fine. This is like round 5. And I don't feel like we're done. I feel like there's another 6 rounds to come. So we're just going to take it day by day, I guess that's what we're going to do. So again, apologies that we couldn't get this out earlier. I was literally trying to pick up the pieces. Fortunately for me here, my building didn't necessarily get the brunt of the storm, although my parents' house did. So I had to kind of take care of them last night. So we were recording a day probably later than we would have necessarily liked. I know that there are people in some other parts of the country that got it worse than even we did, and we had like 4 tornadoes. So if you are in that situation, quick recovery, things can be replaced. People can't. That's the important thing to remember at a time like this, and we hope that the recovery is swift and as quick as it possibly can be. So in those types of situations, what I would also want is a distraction. So we're going to flip the script. We're going to talk about something fun. We're going to talk about the Hungarian GP weekend. And if you have found our show, welcome along. We're glad you're here. You can find us on X, on Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and of course here on YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of those places. If you enjoy what you are seeing and you enjoy what you are hearing, do us a favor, click the like, subscribe, leave us a comment, what you like about the show, what you think we can do better. It's all good. If you're on your favorite podcasting app, click the 5-star button on that. Will also help us out. You can leave us a comment through those channels as well. I will try my best to read all of them, and if necessary, respond accordingly. So we appreciate all of the comment and the interaction through all of those different channels. You can email the show if you'd like to do so. outlapf1@gmail.com will get your thoughts to us. Thank you so much for Outlap F1 Nation, who continues to help us out so much. You all know the names by now. Thank you so much to Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weber, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, who reminded me again that the weather was coming. Thank you, Kevin, for the shout out there. Appreciate it. Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, Jonathan Scott, Rachel Fleming, Dave Doherty, and Brandon Bowler for helping the show out. If you'd like to also help the show out and add your name to that list, we are still in the midst of the European season. We're going to talk about some things with the calendar. We're going to have an ultimate Buy Me a Coffee weekend coming up at some point this year. You can go to our link. It's buymeacoffee.com/outlapf1. Any type of donation you'd like to give us, we would be most grateful if you'd like to do that. Do you have to do it? No, of course not. We're just happy you're listening, but that link will be in all our show notes if you'd like to do that. All right, so the particulars are now out of the way. Normally, we don't do a lot of news in our review, but we had a pretty significant thing happen. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bahrain GP, sponsored by Malaysia, or the other way around or something. It's all going to be really weird. The Bahrain GP is back, but it's not going to be in Bahrain. It is going to take place in Malaysia. That is going to be the ultimate buy us a coffee weekend, because I think those sessions normally kick off at like 3-something a.m. our time. It's going to be after Baku, but in front of Singapore. They're going to make the Malaysia and Singapore weekends back to back as it slots in the calendar. Cody, first reactions to it. We get a race back.
I think it's awesome. I also am really laughing at the semantics of this because, like you said, it is still the Bahrain Grand Prix, but not in Bahrain, which it makes me really laugh that it's like Bahrain is so determined to have this Grand Prix that we're like, fine, if we can't have it here, we'll do it somewhere else, damn it. And yeah, they decided that they're going to, I guess, I'm not really sure how it works. It sounds to me like Bahrain is still kind of footing the bill for this to happen, which is why they're still calling it the Bahrain Grand Prix. But they're doing it in a different place because, as we all know, the Middle East is a bit of a tough area to do fun things in right now. That's putting it nicely. And yeah, so we're going to have that in Malaysia, which to me is probably a great venue for this. We haven't Formula One is not raced in Malaysia it's the Sepang circuit, right? I believe.
Yes.
And yeah, F1 hasn't raced there in several years now, probably like 8-ish, 9-ish years.
Yeah, it's been
which is really too bad because it's quite a popular track. It has had some really good races. It's just that I think Malaysia just at that time really wasn't getting enough support, both from people with money in the area, like the government, and the fandom maybe wasn't really there at the time, so it eventually fell through. Maybe this is a chance to get a foothold again in Formula One. We'll see how this one goes. But yeah, I'm very excited. I'm always happy to see F1 go racing at a new old track, I guess. Let's put it this way: I'm more excited about this than I am about the Madrid.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's good to see. It's good for a lot of different reasons. One, I'm glad that Bahrain has enough wealth in its coffers to foot a race outside of its borders. And Gulf Air will be probably the title sponsor, and they'll move the trophy over. They'll change it from Bahrain GP to Malaysian GP, sponsored by Bahrain or whatever it is, and all that'll work out. It's good for Formula One in that they were down they could not afford to lose another race. And we also know that there are at least two more races that are in some jeopardy at this point of the calendar, and they need to get one back. So they would only be, if they do lose Abu Dhabi and Qatar later on in the year, they would only be down net one, which still puts them under the limit. The other rumor that I'm hearing is, and this is another thing that's not going away, I would expect if those two races can't happen at the end of the year, Imola seems to be the consensus of all the rumor mills, at least right now, to host the season finale. And Portimao would probably take the place of Qatar on the calendar in Portugal. So it would be a more European end to the season after the North American swing between COTA and Mexico and Brazil and Vegas. They would then fly back to Europe for the last potentially two races of the season. Whether or not the dates will all correlate and they'll just do like for like, I'm not sure. They obviously didn't do it with this race here. So we would be then in that scenario, we would only be down one, which means all the TV money would only be down one, which means all the contracts and everything get paid and everybody makes what they are more used to making. It also affects the prize fund. It affects a lot of things to want to have as many races as they had originally scheduled. The Malaysian circuit is a great circuit. It's never been about, I think, Formula One not running well there. They obviously like it. It's just hasn't had the support really from the fandom. That part of the country, or that part of the world, is really, really into MotoGP. I mean, that is where MotoGP goes to test. They run, MotoGP runs there. World Superbikes run there. It's a huge bike-friendly circuit that is also, conducive to Formula One. It's for both. And I think we'll probably get a good race. Now, I also think that just looking at this spec of cars, there's enough hairpins and potential energy. I don't think it's going to be energy starved, and I think we'll get enough through it to get through the straights where we won't have to talk about too much of the super clipping and all the negative stuff. So interesting to see what we're going to do. It will throw the teams a curveball. If you are in Mercedes, this I don't know is the best news for you because it's another opportunity for an unknown to pop up. That having been said, they all have gotten notebooks on this track. They all know what it looks like. It hasn't changed. So we'll see. I would say that the second half of the season, get ready to do some flex scheduling, especially in the later part of the year around November, December. So I think anything after Vegas is going to be kind of question mark, and where things can slot in will be kind of interesting to see how we do it. Calendar is evolving, and at least this one is now made official. And that correlates with what I've been saying about, I knew, like they've been saying, this is not going away. They definitely want to own this race. They definitely want to have this race. Now they're going to have it. It's just not going to be in Bahrain. All right. Well, turning now back to the Hungarian GP, the last race before the summer break. Let's talk about that. Start with our headlines of the day. Cody, I'll let you go first here. What you got?
My headline of the day is that I am always happy to see a new team win during a season of dominance. We've had a couple Ferrari wins here and there, but let's be real, Mercedes has been dominating the season. They had every pole up until this race, and they'd had the lion's share of the wins. I don't think their championship has really ever been in question thus far. But yeah, here it was a little bit of a different story. We had another Mercedes-powered team leading the charge with McLaren, but not the works team. McLaren has been kind of in a weird space so far this season, where at times they've looked really good, second best car, and other times they've looked pretty shitty. So fortunately, they're going into the summer break with their heads held high because they did come away with the win with Lando Norris, and I think most of us are pretty happy about that.
I was definitely a happy bunny after that result, for sure. The qualifying result, I will just tell the story now. I woke up half my building. I'm sure I did, because there was a more than a yelp that came out of my, because I was not expecting it, and I was caught off guard. And the meatball came back out, and I don't usually let that happen very much, but and that's what makes it fun. My headline of the day, speaking with the meatball theme, was, oh my God, that was stressful. Lando, man, oh man, he never makes it easy, even though he clearly had the fastest car by a long shot. There's just enough of what he does to make this never so not straightforward. I cannot think of a driver more that has not had, he really hasn't ever had Lando takes the pole, Lando leads from lap 1, and just wins the race.
He did last year in Mexico and Brazil.
Even the one in Singapore. Mexico's probably the one example. But even in Singapore, where he had a dominant car and was crazy in front and won that race by like 30 seconds, he still damn near put it in the wall at one point. And it was one of these again where it's like, okay, he gets through turn 1. I'm good. We're going to lead from lap 1. No, we're not. And, then we have to make it not easy on ourselves for the whole rest of the race. But he was the best guy in the best car this weekend. That said, he wore the world champ crown. That felt like Lando Norris world champion signature win right there. All right, so we will rewind back to Saturday, and we will tell you where everybody finished in the qualifying session. And I've got, I think, this queued up. And we have some different people that we're going to start with, because the Aston Martin updates, they were working. So that qualifying saw, all right, P22 and P21, there is a new tenant in those unenviable spots. U.S. fans, I'm sorry to say, that was Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, respectively, in the Cadillacs. P18 was the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. However, he was in front of, not behind, the Cadillacs. P19 was Alex Albon. P18, Carlos Sainz. P17, Ollie Behrman. P16, he makes it into Q2. First time this season, Fernando Alonso in the other Aston Martin. P15, Esteban Ocon. P14, Gabby Bortoleto. P13, Franco Calapinto. P12, Pierre Gasly. P11 was Liam Lawson. Your top 10 from 10 to 1. P10, Nico Hulkenberg in the Audi. They are figuring things out. This is them in Q3 yet again. P9, the law firm. Lindblad starts it out in P9 in the Racing Bull. Hadjar comes home for Red Bull in P8. P7 is George Russell in the Mercedes. P6 was Max Verstappen. P5 was Oscar Piastri. P4 was Kimi Antonelli. Bit of a surprise there. P3 was Charles Leclerc. P2, Lewis Hamilton. The Ferraris being close to the front row was not a big surprise, but the pole sitter certainly was. P1, Lando Norris, world champ, put some updates on the car and let that thing cook. 1:17.207, your lap time. All right. Cody, my man, this qualifying got crazy, especially near the end. What's your thought on it?
It definitely did get a little wild at the end, but we'll go. I'll start with the earlier part of the qualifying session, and that is everyone was wondering just what Aston Martin was going to look like this weekend, because we all knew that they were going to be bringing some large amount of upgrades.
16, not just one.
16.
Try 16.
Yeah, so very, very different car from them. Many, many, many aero upgrades, and everyone was kind of wondering, like, how's this actually going to look? Are they going to actually improve as much as they said? And you and I have been joking before, like, yeah, like they're saying they're going to gain a couple of seconds, but they're behind 5 seconds. So how much is that really going to do? Well, they actually pretty much gained what they predicted, which in itself is a big accomplishment. A, to gain that much, and B, to have accurately, predicted exactly what kind of gains they thought they were going to make. And all of this results in Fernando Alonso actually making it to Q2, which I'm sure, even with the fact that they're still far off of the the front running pace, they can still come away from this feeling very good that they actually have a car that is doing something, and it's not embarrassing anymore to the degree that it has been. And they can actually say, okay, like, we're on to something now. We're figuring stuff out. We've got a car that can actually beat some other cars. Maybe we'll keep Fernando Alonso happy enough that he sticks around another year. Who knows? But definitely very good gains from them. And, we're expecting upgrades on the engine side as well after the summer break. So, these gains made on the aero side, I seriously doubt that they're going to make those kinds of gains on the engine side later on, but they're going to probably gain something. So, we haven't seen the end of this. We could actually have a somewhat respectable Aston Martin car by the end of the year. But we're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a couple things they've got in their favor. One, you mentioned it. There's an engine update coming for them in Zandvoort. That has already kind of been announced. The other thing is that the cars that they're actually now racing with, a lot of them have kind of either spent their update tokens or are already talking about we're just going to talk about next year's car, because the Williams don't look like they have anything big in the pipeline from what I read. The Cadillacs have already spent a lot of money on updates that have gotten them to where they are, but now it's still in the back. And the Haas's are still the classic Haas problem of when are they going to actually join the update fight? So, they have some updates, but not a lot of them. So they can get in the mix, clearly able to do that here. Fernando Alonso making it to Q2, probably the happiest I've heard him on team radio in 6 months, where he's like, come on, I got more in this. Let's go. Next set of tires. I don't care if I burn off all my soft sets by the start of Q2. I don't care. I'm going to go as fast as I can. And at one point, even in Q2, I think I tweeted it out, he had gotten up to P10. Now, it was before everybody else came and made their second runs, but there was a moment, like, had there been a crippling yellow flag of some sort or some weird scenario, he could have potentially, I'm not saying it was really in the cards, but there was a moment where I'm like, is there any way that he could, like, ass backwards himself into Q3? Wouldn't that be just a story for all stories? Not to be, but still, progress for Aston Martin. That's the first time we can literally say it. The milk cart has some wheels on it now. Yeah, other big things. The Q3 ended up being quite crazy because lots of couple of things happened. One, Max Verstappen spun on his last attempt. That brought out a yellow flag. And then George Russell, his car decided to go bang right after he completed his final Q3 lap. So he did not improve on it because his engine was dying. He had a bad water pressure leak. In fact, he was saying in his post-race interview that he could see the water literally like sprinkling itself onto the tires. So he was kind of hydroplaning without rain type of thing. So George Russell has found rain in his visor and now in his wheels, both in the same little bit here, but only good enough for P7. Kimi Antonelli was, for all the talk of, the most dominant car, most dominant driver all year, would probably admit to himself that he kind of had an off day, not able to really get the car into the window. And that meant that it was going to be kind of the two heavy hitters, as it turned out, through all the practices, were the Ferraris, who dominated Saturday or Friday running, and the Lando Norris and the McLaren. And I woke up for FP3. It was really early. It was like 5 something in the morning.
Uh-huh.
I get on my timing thing, and normally I watch FP3 kind of half awake. I'm really not paying attention. But I will tell you what will wake you up. 3 purple sectors for your favorite driver on his first flying lap on soft tires. I was awake. Let's put it that way. I literally went, hello and good morning, sir. How are we doing? And it just looked like he found the rhythm. I can only explain it that way. He was definitely pushing the car to its limits. But yeah, the showdown between him and Hamilton, and it was not much in it, 0.012 seconds. It comes down. Lando is the last car. Lewis sets down an absolute flyer, and Lando's chasing him. I did not legit think Lando was going to catch him, especially after the first Q3 run. I'm like, maybe that's all they got. This is still really good. It's going to be front row. I'll take it. And Lando somehow gets it done. And like I said before, I woke up half my building after that one because the timing went, his name went up. And the only thing I said is, you better not take it away for track limits. But yeah, no, a heck of a qualifying session. Lots of stuff going on.
Yes, it was nice to see how close it was in the qualifying. We're definitely getting to the point, at least on this track, where everyone kind of looked like they're starting to close up a little bit. We're kind of back to the point here. We've only got, about 0.6 seconds between first and eighth, which is quite good. And, Ferrari was right back up there looking really good again. Lewis Hamilton, like you said, was just off of Lando Norris, so he was right in contention. So it looked good. It looked exciting. We didn't really see any, recharge issues, which we kind of were expecting to not see that here because it's a more of an energy-rich track for these types of cars. The only last thing that I've got to note is that it did get a little weird at the end because the last run, I was getting all excited to see, like, oh my God, like, who's actually going to get this? And pretty much everybody had a worse run for their last run, which was really disappointing to see.
Which has
pretty
not
much
been
everyone
the norm.
go around just get yellows. Like Max Verstappen was going around, and it's like yellow, and I'm like, son of a bitch! Like he must have messed it up. And then everyone else going around was just the same yellow, and I was like, what the hell's going on here? But yeah, I still don't know exactly what it was. If they were trying to do, scrubbed tires, or if maybe track conditions had just like fallen away a little bit because of something happened with the heat or the wind. Who really knows? But at the very end, there, it was not really working out for just about anybody. So,
yeah, I mean, whereas in some other tracks, we had seen the final Q3 run being definitive. I mean, look at what George did in Austria to take that pole, and he had a lift through a yellow flag sector. One big footnote that was kind of a downer for me, because I kind of wanted to see Lando versus Lewis on the front row, was Lewis ended up getting a 3-place grid penalty, as did Kimi Antonelli. Lewis got a 3-place grid drop for an impeding of Oscar Piastri, which I'm sorry to say was a slam dunk. As soon as I saw that one there's no ifs, ands, or buts. As much as I like to rag on the FIA, and there will be some ragging on the FIA a little bit later, trust me on that one. This one was straightforward, and that's the right call. The one that was a little more weird was Kimi Antonelli getting a 3-place grid drop for apparently not lifting enough through the Max Verstappen spin, because he did improve his lap on that lap. So even though he only improved it marginally, it wouldn't have moved him up anymore on the grid. He does end up having to start the race in P7. So Oscar Piastri becomes the benefactor of all this. He qualifies 5th, and now he lines up on race day in P3, which will be significant when we turn to Sunday. But Cody, any other final thoughts in qualifying before we flip the script?
No, that was pretty much it. Just, again, the Lewis Hamilton penalty was a slam dunk. I think even Lewis knew it because he was pretty modest when they were interviewing him during the post qualifying. He was like, "Yeah, I qualified so well." I think he knew. I think he knew it was coming, and they showed the replay in his radio where he was like, "Was he on a flyer?" And it's like, yeah, he knew. He was in trouble.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. I don't think I truly don't think anybody does those types of things intentionally, and they don't have great mirrors. So it is really more on the team to tell them. And as we'll also talk about on Sunday, I don't know if some of the issues with the driver tracker were affected on Saturday, as they definitely were on Sunday. So I don't know totally where the fault is, but when you add it all up, regardless of whose fault it is, it's impeding. And Oscar lost his last attempt at a flyer. Sarcastic Piastri was out in full force. He was fist bumping Lewis Hamilton as he drove past him afterwards in true Oscar. And that's what I would expect from Oscar Piastri, man. So he was living up to form. Okay, so we now had our grid drops. We had our benefactors from it. We knew who was going to line up where. We flipped the script to Sunday, and we will start, as we are always apt to do, with those back markers. We've got a heavy hitter in the back markers. So we're going to have to talk a little bit about how he got there. So your non-classified finishers for this race are Valtteri Bottas in the Cadillac, Sergio Perez in the other Cadillac. It was hot. The brakes decided to melt again. Cadillac know that that's a problem. And Lord only knows when they're going to be able to fix it, because this is not the first time we've seen it, and it was on both cars, and it was really, really bad looking. So, unfortunately, no opportunities to score for the Cadillacs. The third DNF comes in the form of Oscar Piastri, who had probably the most up and down day of anybody on the grid. We'll talk about what happened to him. So P19 was Ali Behrman. P18 was Carlos Sainz. P17 was Alex Albon. P16 was Esteban Ocon. P15 was Franco Colapinto. P14, Aston Martin have literally passed a third of the grid in one weekend. They are not P22 and P21, respectively. They are P14 and P13, respectively. Dang it. Fernando Alonso, P14. Lance Stroll, remember him? Remember how he's actually still driving a Formula One car? Finished in front of his teammate, which is also a big deal. But P13 on the day. So other than Piastri, who we're going to talk about kind of separately because he's in kind of with the front runners, what do you think about the guys in the back?
It's definitely is continuing the good form for Aston Martin from qualifying. They were able to benefit from the retirements and use that to move up just a little bit. Lance Stroll, despite the fact he qualified quite a bit worse than Fernando, ended up having himself a pretty good race. They actually, were only one lap down this time instead of like 2, 3, like some of the other field here was. But yeah, kind of a lot of what we expected to see down here. The Cadillacs are at the back and retiring because they're still figuring out how Formula One cars work. We've got the Haas's back here, the Williams, guys who have kind of decided to write off the season. Franco Colapinto, unfortunately, not having a great outing this time. But yeah, do you want to talk about the Carlos Sainz thing now or when we get to Piastri?
We'll talk about him when we get to Piastri, because I'm going to lump the midfield and the podium together so that we can kind of do the whole thing, because it's all interconnected, as we're going to talk about in just a little minute. So our midfield finishers were P12, Pierre Gasly, P11, Gabby Bortoleto, P10 was Arvid Lindblad, P9, Nico Hulkenberg, good points for Audi. That's 3 in a row for them. P8 was Liam Lawson. P7 was George Russell. We will talk about his adventure. He had a very down and then recovery drive that he made for himself there. P6 was Isaac Hadjar. P5, Lewis Hamilton. And P4 was Charles Leclerc. Your podium finishers, P3, Kimi Antonelli. P2, Max Verstappen. And in P1, I want to get the gif of the Muhammad Ali going, "The champ is here." He's finally back. Lando Norris back to P1 with his first victory on the season. First victory as reigning world champion. All right, so let's bring Piastri back into the discussion. We got to talk about lap 1. The McLarens get a great start off the line. Piastri in the clean side of the track, right behind his teammate, leaps over Lewis Hamilton, or leaps over Charles Leclerc, who was lined up in P2, and gets the lead out of the second turn. Cody, how'd you see it?
I honestly thought that this was a really good display of skill from pretty much everyone on the field, because we go into the first turn here and it's really bunched up. You got Max and Kimmy and Lewis like making big gains. You got Charles trying to do what he can. You got Piastri making, a really good move. And it's like everyone is bunching up and they're going like 3 wide, 2 rows deep, into that first turn. I was like, oh shit, this never ends well. But, they all got through it. They got through it really clean. And then, going into the next turn, Lando, I don't know if he just, maybe miscalculated a little bit. We unfortunately do have a history of seeing Lando Norris not have the greatest performance during the first lap of the race. I don't know if he just gets the jitters or something. Who knows? But he went a little too deep into the first turn. Oscar Piastri kind of did a switchback move, saw the opportunity there, and takes off into the lead. And it was honestly a really good move there. We also saw some really good driving from Max Verstappen, who needed to, he was trying to defend that third position as best he could. And I didn't think he was going to be able to hold on to it, but he was, doing what he does and taking up the whole track and holding up everyone behind him, which, despite the fact that he doesn't like these regs and he doesn't like his car right now and all that. And from everything that I can tell the last couple of years, he probably has a bad taste in his mouth over this track as it is. He still put on a pretty good performance, and I was really enjoying watching that defensive driving in the first few laps.
Yeah, I mean, so from my perspective, I see the start. I see Lando get clear. He had a really good get off the line. I see him get into the first turn, and he's still in the lead. And he gets out of that first turn, and I'm like, he goes to the outside to defend against Piastri, potentially getting to the outside. And I'm like, okay, we should be fine. And I start to turn my head to put my focus back to the live timing board. And the next thing I know, I see out of the corner of my eye, he gets really wide. It was also very, very dusty across the track the entirety of the weekend. So he got onto some of the dirty part of the track. His car jinks on him. And the next thing you know, the Red Sea opened up and Oscar Piastri took the opening. And now it's still a McLaren 1-2, but with Piastri in front and Norris in second. My first thought was, I was telling Cody with this in the pre-show, my Piastri side of my brain went, if I'm Oscar Piastri, I'm going, yeah, you all remember me, the guy you were all telling to forget? Jacques Villeneuve, go stuff it at that moment. That's what I was kind of saying. And so I was happy for Piastri, but I was clearly upset for Lando too, because I'm like, God damn it. Can't we have one where it's just straightforward? But no, we're not going to do that. We're going to be in P2, which means Oscar gets the preferred strategy and everything, and that will come into play in a little bit. So that kind of set up lap 1. Max Verstappen did, like as you said, the great defense to keep both Ferraris behind him. And as the race starts to kind of evolve out of the first few laps, my first thought was I was going to text you, and I'm going, I'm, as a McLaren fan, thanking Max Verstappen for being there, because he's kind of letting us kind of sort of get away a little bit and kind of be on our own, because he's holding back what looked like much quicker both Ferrari cars in it. And as Max and Lewis Hamilton had a good old-fashioned old-school duel where Lewis tries to do the undercut early. The other thing we have to talk about too, the Ferraris were the only cars running in the top 10 that had started on soft tires. So they were trying to get the launch off the line. When they didn't quite get it, it kind of screwed their strategy a little bit, because they had to pit early. But they did so, and we all know this is a track where the undercut is the king. This is what all the team order stuff from McLaren from a couple of years ago was all because of the undercut and what the effect that it has. That those new tires on this track are for feel goods effectively and make you go really, really fast, really, really quickly. So Lewis comes in and does it. Max tries to cover him off. Lewis gets Max in the stop sequence, and Max pulls probably one of the better moves I've seen this year. A dive bomb move into turn one that didn't look like it was going to be anything. Yeah, there's a back marker involved in it, but Max used him as a pick and gets back around Lewis in a really, really good clean for both sides. They didn't touch. They touched a little bit, but it wasn't anything too bad. Both cars ended up surviving the corner okay, and what I would call a very fair move at the time.
I loved that part. And when Max pitted after Lewis and ended up coming out behind him, I was like, well, shit, that's that. Ferrari looks like they've got the better pace this weekend. There goes the podium. And then he does that move. And I was kind of doing the same thing the announcers were doing. I was like, oh my God, holy shit, where did that come from? And Max on the radio really cracks me up because GP is like, man, that was a really good move. And Max is like, I don't want to complain, but you went under braking. And I was like, yeah, leave it to Max to like be a stickler after, doing something really awesome. But honestly, in my humble opinion, I don't even know that was Lewis moving under braking. I mean, the cars, of course, they move under braking. You have to, turn. And I think it was really more like Lewis was just getting ready to go into the turn, and suddenly there was another car there, and he was like, "Oh, whoa, okay," and had to kind of get out of it. I think that's really kind of more what it was, at least from my.
Max came from so far back. Even if Lewis is attempting, even if you want to say that's somehow moving under braking, he's moving under braking because he thinks he's by himself.
Yeah, he thinks he's moving to make a turn, and suddenly there's an object there that he doesn't want to hit.
That nobody saw coming, least of all me. So, but that ended up, again, playing pick for the two McLarens out in front. Piastri makes his first stop, gets back out kind of in line in front of those guys. Lando makes his stop, and they didn't have a huge window with which to drop Lando in to still be in front of the Max and in front of the Ferraris, but they managed to somehow pull it off. So you get to the first round of pit stops, and it's effectively still the same running. The second round of stops is where this race really kicked off because Ferrari once again chooses to short pit Hamilton, now putting them on a better set of hard tires, which the Ferrari was mad quick on. Lewis is now chasing down. The McLarens had to respond. They had to respond with Piastri. They asked him to lift his pace, that they needed whatever pace he had now. Piastri didn't like the set of hard tires he was on. And it was going to come down to we either box one of them or we lose this whole thing. And because Oscar was in front, he gets the call to come in. That opened up clean air for Lando, who had been looking and waiting for the opportunity to get clean air. Lando's side of the garage went for the offset strategy. He's done this before, but that's the hard route to try to do an overcut on a track where the undercut is so prevalent here. So Piastri comes out. He's got the gap still to Lewis. He keeps Lewis behind him. Lando then goes out and manages to only, with guys that were on 20-lap fresher tires, was only like 0.3 slower, which just proved how, once he got in that car in clean air, that was the qualifying for him back. He pumped in 7 or 8 absolutely beautiful laps as far as I was concerned, and ends up forcing the overcut to work so that he's in front of Oscar. So that's kind of your running order. You got Lando in front, pulling now away from Oscar. But before that, in that whole sequence, we have to talk about the back marker and the incident that really, I don't know if Lando gets this overcut done without this. We'll never know.
Exactly.
But we got to talk about this next sequence.
As you were talking about that, I was kind of feeling like, you're leaving out a really important detail here because the overcut only just barely worked. And there was, some stuff that happened that lost Piastri some time that may have resulted in it actually working.
Okay, so let's set this up. So, again, this is one of those things that when you watch just the base broadcast, you don't necessarily get all the facts. I will recommend again. Right. I will recommend again to watch and on board with it, because when the team radios are so important, and why they didn't broadcast this, I don't understand, because it would have made everybody's understanding of what was happening so much better. Early on, I don't know what happened. There was a glitch that happened in the timing and scoring. There were two things that were wrong. One, the driver tracker on the live timing apparently decided to take a crap and stopped giving even the guys in the booth the real-time data, that at least on car position. They still had the deltas, they still had the timing, they still had the timing loops and all that was still working, but they didn't have the driver tracker. Two is the blue flag system that we're all used to in Formula One, which is the normal system is when you get blue flags shown to you, you get a panel that lights up. It's blue box with your number inside it. That tells that driver, and then it also kind of lights up on their steering wheel. That tells that particular driver you have 3 chances, 3 zones before you either slow the F down and get out the way, or we're giving you a penalty for ignoring blue flags. That system also decided to take a crap somewhere around lap 10 because they told Lando and Oscar at the same time the blue flag system wasn't functioning. So they went to what is normally their backup system, which instead of the panel with a blue box and a specific number, there was just a lighted panel. So, and wasn't necessarily like it wasn't correlating as much to the steering wheel as it should have. Lando Norris in the cool down room actually said at one point, even his steering wheel lit up with a blue flag. And he was like, how could that be? I'm running P2 or P1 the whole race. So it was just not a possibility. So the system was definitely not working the way that it should have. That having been said, the panels were clearly lighting up. And we get the sequence of Piastri has made his pit stop. He's trying to undercut and keep his lead in the race. He's trying to go as fast as he can. He comes upon Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz. And Fernando Alonso, this is the first time he's raced anybody all year and was finally going to have some fun. And he decides to do a dive bomb move into turn 1 on Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz tries to switch it back going into turn 2. They get out of turn 2. Sainz is on the outside. And oh, by the way, here comes the leader trying to run as fast as he possibly can because he knows he's got Lando right on his rear end and they're going to box him the next lap and he's going to potentially lose the lead. What happens is Carlos, and he says he doesn't see him. Okay, I'll grant you that. The blue flags were definitely there, but Carlos comes back into the racing line after the ding dong with Fernando, and Oscar Piastri's right where he's supposed to be in the racing line, and they touch, and it costs Piastri a good 1.5 seconds because the gap I know the magic number was like 22.5 seconds was the expected delta time for a normal pit stop. It went from 21.8 to 23.5 in that minute. And that then leaves Lando with an opportunity to where if he boxes on that lap, he can now complete the overcut, which he does. And now it's Lando P1, Oscar P2. Oscar is now not obviously a very happy bunny. He definitely let Carlos Sainz hear it. That's about as animated as you're going to get Oscar Piastri on the radio. And, you effing idiots, I don't believe this. This is, all of the semantics that you would expect him to say. And he's rightful to say it. So Carlos Sainz gets a penalty. We'll talk about why they only gave him 5 seconds when normally it would have been 10. FIA doing their cop-out act yet again. Okay, whatever. At that point, his penalty is irrelevant at that point. The damage has already been done. And it all kind of ends up being a moot thing because about 4 laps after that, Oscar Piastri's gearbox decides, I'm not going to have any more fun today. I'm going to pull over, and his day is done. And he was not a happy bunny for sure. Cody, I've been talking for a while. What'd you think of all that?
A lot of different things, honestly. So I have to imagine that, the positional data not being there and the blue flag system not working properly. I have to imagine the teams were aware of this, right? So it's like on one hand, yes, I can understand it's not working properly as driver in Alonso and Sainz's position. Like you don't necessarily know for sure that blue flag is for you because you're just seeing blue panels. You are seeing blue panels. So you do know that there are blue flags, and whether it's for you at that moment or not, it's going to be for you very shortly.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
It's kind of like I want to give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt there, but you also have to imagine that if the system isn't functioning properly, I would think that their race engineer will come over the radio and say at some point, hey, just so you know, blue flag system is being weird. We might have to talk in your ear and let you know, is how I would do it as a race engineer. And then in that moment, probably would have been a good time, even if they're racing each other, it would probably be a good time, even like a couple turns before that. Hey, race leader is catching up to you, blue flag's coming, anticipate it. Like, just give them a heads up if they're not going to know for sure by the panel.
Even if it's not exact, because they didn't have the driver tracker. But your point's totally
to
valid.
Me, it's like, it wasn't functioning properly. Yeah, your mirrors only do so much because they're like this big, but like they should have known. And if they didn't know, they should have been told by the race engineers. And so I still kind of feel like what happened on Sainz's end was still pretty inexcusable. He actually kind of ran Piastri off the track. It wasn't like he just hit him. Like Piastri
it was a full-on smack. And if it's any other part of the car, he loses body work easy. It's almost as bad as the Leclerc hit from Spa.
He was very unapologetic after the race, which kind of made him look a little even worse in it. And I agree with you that was about as animated as we see Piastri. He normally is pretty cool as a cucumber, and most you get out of him is, well, that freaking sucked, or like, some kind of sarcastic remark. No, this was like flat out pissed off Piastri on the radio, and he was still pissed off after the race and calling out Sainz. And it was really interesting to see their interviews after the race of Piastri still being really pissed off and being like, I don't know what Sainz is going to use as an excuse for this. And then Sainz pretty much saying, I don't need an excuse. Like, it's like, whoa, boy, these guys are not going to be friends anytime soon.
I wouldn't expect a Christmas card. The group Christmas card may stop at Oscar Piastri's door. For a little bit.
And in the end, the gearbox was going to go anyway. So it pretty much just made Piastri's bad time get even worse. I can't imagine that helped his mood any, but like, even if that hadn't happened, it is a good argument to make that lost him the win. If he,
it would have been a very much tighter. When Lando comes out the pits, it's either going to be they're side by side going into turn one, or Oscar is slightly ahead going into turn one with better tire temp at that point.
And we saw during all of those earlier stints, Lando kept saying over the radio, I'm way faster. And we saw it proven once Piastri pit, but we also saw during that whole sequence that, he may have been a lot faster, but he wasn't passing Oscar.
Right.
So it clearly wasn't very easy to do so. And so track position really made all the difference. And I can totally understand why he was so pissed off.
Yeah, but the other thing is, I don't think it wasn't wrong of the team to box Piastri when they did, because they asked him. They said, "Can you make it any farther on this set of tires?" And he said, "No, this set is very inconsistent." And in that same moment, Max is closing in on the two of them. So was Hamilton, and Hamilton was setting purple laps, three or four purple laps in a row. So you had to do something, and the right move in that minute in my head was, we'll get Oscar off this set of tires and give him the undercut. Like you give him that, which is by far the preferred strategy. What nobody thought was even going to happen. Even when Lando got clean air, I'm like, well, all right, it's make or break time, bud. You wanted it. You got it. Let's go see what you do with it. And to pump in those laps like he did, it certainly would have made it. It would have been really, really close without the incident. The incident kind of put it over the top, and that was kind of all she wrote for Oscar's win perspective. But had Oscar come back out in front, it would have been some interesting Papaya Rules radio coming home, and I was not necessarily looking forward to it. But I'm still gutted that the gearbox failed, because I'm selfish. We had a chance for a 1-2. We could have got it. But anyway.
Yeah, the 1-2 would have been really cool, but you still get the Lando win. It's still really good to see Lando get the win as world champion, I was a little worried, that we're pretty much halfway through the season now. I was a little worried that we might actually get through this whole season without getting a Lando Norris win as world champion, which, that's got to be a pretty cool feeling. So I'm really glad that we got that. Max Verstappen, because of he benefits from that Piastri retirement, he finishes P2. Kimi Antonelli ends up making a really good comeback from his starting position and wraps up the podium. So he finishes in front of all of his closest competitors again in the championship. So he still increases his lead. In fact, I would say
his bad
go ahead.
day's still a podium.
His bad day is still a podium. He still had a good outing. It's good to see. You can't say that about his teammate. George Russell had pretty much a rotten weekend all around. He finishes 7th, which is not a great look. But Ferrari, I would say, ended up probably being the biggest disappointment from the race overall because, they qualified 2nd and 3rd. And obviously, Lewis loses out on his front row start because of his penalty, but it just bumps Charles Leclerc up to the front row. And they looked pretty quick, but just what they were doing with the pit stops and everything and trying the alternate strategy with soft tires and stuff that no one else was doing, then ended up costing them positions, and neither one of them finished on the podium. Lewis was kind of trying to race Kimi there at the end, but he ended up getting a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane anyway. So then he ends up losing his 4th place to Leclerc. So yeah, despite the fact that they looked strong the whole weekend, they didn't really end up coming away with as good as I'd hoped.
Yeah, 0.1 kmh over the limit, according to the document that I found.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
And hopefully the limiter is actually working right.
Well, that was going to be my next point. Like, I have not heard about a potential appeal, and we're not going to go down that rabbit hole yet again. I think we've at least learned to measure time and distance, if not track 22 drivers around a track. But all right, we'll get to the FIA later. But overall, I thought this race was a lot of fun. We didn't talk much about George Russell. He dropped like a stone at the start.
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
And he ends up in like P21 and clawed his ass back up into P7. So it was definitely a recovery drive for him. It was interesting that in the cool down room, Kimi Antonelli was speculating about, because they play the highlights, and he goes, he probably filled his pack up and then he dropped it, and all that deployment just didn't go anywhere. So then the thing is dead, and he's got to recharge it as he's moving. So it was a very interesting insight, very interesting cool down room. One of the better ones. I'm like, boy, just leave this. Let this be the post race for more than a couple minutes there, because when the battle is done, they actually say some pretty cool stuff there in that thing. But yeah, so that's your Hungarian GP. Other notable mention, Nico Hulk, got to give a shout out to Nico Hulkenberg in P9. First points on the season for him, so he is off the schneid there. The Racing Bulls, again, coming through in double points for them. That moves them up in the constructors. We'll talk about where that's at in a little bit. But yeah, I think overall a fun, I don't know how you can determine yourself if you enjoyed it, but I thought it was an enjoyable race. There was lots of drama. There was lots of things that happened. And the best part, we didn't talk about a battery the whole damn time. I loved it.
Agreed.
All right. Well, so endeth the Hungarian GP. We now hit the summer break. But where did this do to all the point standings? We will tell you all of that in just a little bit. We'll recap what happened to the drivers and the teams. We'll then open it up to your thoughts on the weekend in the fan email segment. We've got our contributors here. We'll hand out some awards. We'll talk about predictions. The predictions were not all that great for us this time. Lando getting good kind of screwed us all up. Let's put it that way. But anyway, we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about what the summer break harkens and when we're going to pick up the business as we go to Zandvoort. So Max Verstappen's home advantage for sure. I think it will be
for the
very
last
orange.
time for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, exactly. So come on back. You will not want to miss it.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back on in. This is Season 8, Episode number 18 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2026 Hungarian GP review show. We've got Andy. I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just wrapped up talking about a very eventful Hungarian GP. And now Formula One gets to take a little bit and take summer break and come back, and we're going to figure out where we're going to race. We're going to finish this season. We don't necessarily know where, but that's going to be the fun of it. We will be here covering all of it. So what did this round do to the driver and constructor standings? Cody, if you take the top 10 in the drivers, I will recap the teams.
All right. So Kimi Antonelli still out in the lead for Mercedes at 219 points, despite having a little bit of a more difficult weekend for him. He still gets on the podium, and better than that, he still actually extends his lead in the driver standings. He is now 50 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who's in second for Ferrari at 169 points. So 2 entire Grand Prix victories ahead of Lewis Hamilton at this point. George Russell in third place in the other Mercedes at 160 points. Fourth place, Charles Leclerc for Ferrari at 138. Lando Norris obviously comes away with maximum points this time out, so he makes big gains. He's in fifth place for McLaren at 128 points. Max Verstappen also continuing to still have some really good outings. You know, I was looking at kind of the race records over, quite the last few races, and really, had it not been for his car going kaput in Monaco from the front row and him spinning out because of his wing issues in Great Britain,
and
he really
Austria.
Actually would be doing quite well and would have been on the podium more often than not. So it's kind of hard to see exactly where they're at with those couple of issues so far, but Red Bull does appear to be doing pretty well despite Max Verstappen's complaints.
Not
anyway,
according
Max
to him, but objectively maybe different.
Yes. So Max in sixth place for Red Bull at 109 points. Oscar Piastri, unfortunately not getting any points out of this very strong weekend for him. He's in seventh place for McLaren at 92 points. Isaac Hadjar in eighth place, and the other Red Bull at 68 points. Liam Lawson actually, looking pretty good. Still getting more points this weekend. Actually, he beat Lindblad this time out, so good points for Lawson. He's in ninth place for Racing Bulls at 43 points, and that now puts him ahead of Pierre Gasly, who is wrapping up the top 10 for Alpine, and he sits at 42 points.
All right. So our team standings after this round of the FIA Formula One World Championship are as follows. P1, no surprise here, Mercedes. This is now, is it the second or third race they haven't come home with the win in all year? So 379 points for them. A very, very strong start to the season for sure. P2 is Ferrari. They check in with 307 points. P3, solidly now in P3, is McLaren at 220 points on the year. P4 is Red Bull. They're up to 177 points on the year. P5, Racing Bulls, up to P5. They are on 66 points. They pass P6 now Alpine, who remain on 61 points. P7 is Haas. There's a bit of a gap there. They remain on 21 points. P8 is Audi. They've been scoring more consistently, so they're up to 12 points on the year. P9, Williams remain on 11 points. P10 is going to be the Aston Martins, who still check in with the solitary point. And P11 is the Cadillac team, 0 points on the season in the first half for them. All right, so we told you our thoughts on the Hungarian GP, a lot of stuff happening all over the place. What did you guys think of the Hungarian GP? We've got our fan emails here. We start, as we are always apt to do, with the great Rachel Fleming. Cody, what does she have to say?
All right. Thank you, Rachel, for your email. And Rachel says, "Hi, guys. I really enjoyed that race. I didn't think I would after lap 1. Well done, Lando. He was right. He did have the pace after all. Yes, his old friend Carlos helped out, but it's still great to see him winning again. Carlos, awful error. I saw it on the small box, which my dad and the commentators didn't pick up, and I jumped out of my seat. Oscar was mighty angry. After the gearbox failed, I wouldn't go near Oscar after that race unless you want to get your head bitten off. All of Charles's bad luck seemed to be transferred to George Russell. Why? He did have a good recovery drive to 7th, though. Perez watch. Lego is too sturdy for that car. My dad suggested Play-Doh for that suspension. Also, for the sake of the team's brakes, they should do a race in Finland in December. Might be cold enough then. Audi watch. Points for Hulk. Finally off the mark. Maybe Bort let him through at the end to make sure he got at least a point, but he had the pace. So glad the monkey is off his back. Alonso watch. Big one here. Progress. Yes, he was stuffed by the VSE, but he got into Q2. I would recommend the onboard for quali as it's really fun. Yes, no points, but he was nowhere near last, and he wasn't 2 minutes behind everyone else. Have a great summer break. Yes, thank you, Rachel. A lot of very good points here. Yeah, I guess I kind of maybe shit on George a little too much. I did forget about the awful start, which, may not entirely have been his fault. He did fall like a rock, and anytime you see something like that happen where a driver in the front or in the middle has, pretty much goes into anti-stall or doesn't get going at all, it can be really scary because you just kind of have to cross your fingers and pray to God that nobody hits them. So everyone was paying very good attention. Nobody hit George, and we all got to, see a good race unfold. You usually see those kind of accidents a lot more in the junior series. In fact, I think we actually had one like that in F3.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did kind of forget that happened and that he had to recover all the way back to 7th. So I suppose he did actually have a pretty good recovery drive, even if he had some poor luck and not great qualifying. The Cadillac, we keep saying this over and over again. They're a new team. It's going to happen. They're going to have a lot of hiccups. We really didn't expect too much from them this season. And now that Aston Martin has found some kind of form, they are kind of alone at the back. And we keep seeing these brake issues where the car catches on fire. And that part is kind of sad. I really hope they're able to figure that part out.
I mean, you could all gather ye around the tire fire that is the Cadillac and warm your hands. I don't really know what else to say about it. It's just, they know what the issue is. From what I've read, they've identified what the problem is. It's just going to take them, like when it happened in Austria and they doubled DNF like at the first 2 laps. They said it was going to take 6 to 8 weeks to fashion a new one. So you're probably not going to see a redesigned brake duct until the next race, at least in Zandvoort. So I'm not shocked that once the weather got a little hot, that these guys kind of literally kind of melted in the sunshine there a little bit. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as soon as I saw the radio message come over that it's like, I've got smoke in the cockpit, I was like, God damn it, not again. Like, this keeps happening.
Well, and then the other thing is, like, you watch it on the timing and you just see yellow flag, and I'm looking, okay, who's not going? And Perez kept going. So, like, everybody, they're lighting up yellow mini sectors, but, you couldn't tell which one was stopped. I'm like, who is it? Then the broadcast finally catches up, and then you see, it's Hulkenberg, or not Hulkenberg, it's Bottas going into the pits, and he actually caused a problem from where he stopped, because he comes down the pit lane, and then he ended up like pinning the car up against the inside retaining wall to where he had to be helped, and they didn't yellow flag it, but the pit lane itself was yellow flagged, and that created a problem for people who were trying to make this right in the first set of stops is all that was kicking off. The Perez one, again, kind of same issue, but not as egregious of a problem. But he did actually make it back, I think, to the pits at the end there. So we didn't have a virtual safety. The only virtual safety car, ironically enough, was the Piastri one.
It's got to be really frustrating if you're Valtteri or Sergio, and the team identifies what the problem is. And they're like, we're sorry, we can't do anything about it for several Grand Prix. You're just going to have to live with it and do the best you can. And you're probably going to keep retiring. I guess if you're running at the back, maybe that doesn't sting quite as much, but it's still got to be really frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, it was similar issue. The 2023 before the McLaren updates, that Bahrain test, that entire 3 days, they were marred with brake issues and brakes overheating. And it drastically affected how they could run and when they could run and what they could do. And it was the same thing. They're like, we can mitigate some of it to get the car out, but the only way we're going to fix it now that we know that it's a problem is with a new brake duct. And that's going to it just takes time to fashion so it's one of those things. It can happen to any team. Unfortunately, it's happened to the Cadillacs here, and they're going to just have to kind of dig their way out of it. To your other points, yeah, the Russell thing. One thing I wanted to bring up, and I didn't notice it when he dropped like that, but I thought one of the mitigations was supposed to be like on the starts. If you had exactly what happened to Russell, I thought there was supposed to be some extra boost or something that was supposed to kick in to prevent that from happening, or at least from happening as bad. And I didn't necessarily see it on his onboard.
Although it's kind of like you don't really know what the problem was, though, because that boost thing is really, I think, supposed to only come into play if you don't have like enough charge, right? And it sounds like he went into actual anti-stall, which is more of an issue with the internal combustion side not going, right? Like you're pretty much, you jump into gear and there's not enough revs to get the car going. So then it's got that system that's supposed to make it so, okay, well, we're going to pull some magic here so that you don't actually fully stall. It sounds kind of like maybe that was more what it was. Now, if the boost is supposed to be there to then get you going after that anti-stall, well, you already anti-stalled, so you're already like much slower than everyone else. So it might save you from like imminent danger, but it's not gonna keep you from losing all those places.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. And when I saw his onboard, I'm like, I wonder if any of those mitigations, if that's even applicable here. That'd be something I noticed.
Be really curious to learn about that.
But yeah, no, thank you very much, Rachel. And I think we're all happy that the Aston Martins are no longer painful to watch. There's only so much dogging I can give a team during the year, but
it's like, it's fun to make fun of it for like a couple races, and then it just gets kind of sad.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Our next contributor, Mr. Dave Doherty, one of our great interactions over the course of the weekend. Thank you very much, Dave. Cody, what does he have to say?
All right. Thank you, Dave, for your email. And Dave says, hello, team. Well, that was a pretty big surprise for the F1 world. That was like visiting Alton Towers in the UK. Little did we know that McLaren still have some fight in them. We all thought this Ferrari versus Mercedes. How surprising this was. What are your thoughts with Red Bull putting Max on the softs? Since they kind of set a trend toward the end of the last remaining laps, love the Antonelli versus Norris fighting. And also, I think the F1 app is perfect for the pit wall info interface, as that was accurate. Although it had one glitch, one of the leaders, the leader part is it was 60 seconds slow. I'm not really sure what's going on with 60 seconds slow, but I'm happy that F1 corrected it when I refreshed it. You know what Dave's talking about there was 60 seconds slow on the F1 app.
The only thing I'm assuming he's doing it from his phone. He's looking at the timing like from the phone part. I do it
so maybe like it was just like 60 seconds behind. Ooh,
right.
Yeah, that's a pretty big lag. Yeah, you probably
that's frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine that would kind of suck. And as far as putting Max on softs, honestly, if I'm being perfectly honest, it was early in the morning and I was just trying to stay awake and focused on the front running stuff. I didn't even really notice that they put Max Verstappen on soft tires.
His last stint, he does like 21 laps on the soft tires at the end there.
Now that you're mentioning that does kind of sound about right, because I was at that point worried about him getting caught by Kimi or Hamilton because of those tires maybe going away.
Well, because and the other thing that happened was the Piastri VSC Lando gets basically a free stop. So he comes in and gets off his hard tires and goes to softs. And so does everybody else. And there's Max with the oldest set of soft tires amongst like 6 guys. And to his credit, those softs either never fell off or they didn't fall off enough to where it brought the Ferraris back into it. So yeah, I mean, he made, like, at that point, the soft tire makes more sense to me because you're not full of fuel and you're further on into the race, where what Ferrari did with trying to start on the soft tires with the car full of fuel didn't work as good. So I think shout out to Red Bull strategy people for that one. I thought that was pretty good.
All right. And then the last little bit here I'm going to bring up is maybe you can help me here, Andy. I'm not going to lie, the Alton Towers reference here is sailing clear over my head.
So
I have no idea what you're talking about, Dave.
All right. So Dave is talking, it's a roller coaster. So the weekend was a roller coaster.
Oh, okay.
He actually said, well, no, he had to send me a picture of it because I didn't get it either. So it was literally like the F1 weekend for him was a bit of a roller coaster because Kimi was struggling, but then doing well. And then it was the Ferraris, and then it was, a different battle. So he was doing what I do, man, on most weekends, man, where it's like the agony and the ecstasy all in the same minute.
All right. I love it. All right. Thank you again, Dave, for your email. Our last one's going to come in from The Formula. Thank you, Mr. Formula. And I hope that you're doing well after your part of the very crazy weather over this weekend. And Formula says, although Hungary isn't great for overtaking, it is much more suited to the capability of these current cars. Lots of charged up batteries with next to no clipping, which we did mention that we didn't hear anything about the batteries this weekend, which was
and the graphic was magically back.
Oh yeah, as soon as it's not a problem, we can show you the data.
Amazing.
But this race was quite surprising. A little 2025 throwback when it looked like a McLaren 1-2 coming, and then a little 2021 throwback with Max and Lewis trading blows. I did not expect McLaren to be as strong as they were. And as we get to our predictions here in a little bit, you're going to find that we didn't think so either. Nor did I expect Aston to actually produce a top 15 car even after upgrades. I guess we now need to start dogging on Cadillac. They're embarrassing. Yeah, we did a little bit of dogging on Cadillac here already. And I am hoping that, they'll get their brake issues and suspension issues fixed here over the summer break. That's, kind of one of the nice things about the summer break is you've got time to actually get this stuff cranked out and applied to the car. But if we're being realistic here, Cadillac's going to be at the back of the field for the rest of the season. Like, that's just the nature of the game. New team, figuring things out beyond just figuring out the car. They're figuring out all of the processes, just get through the weekend. So they're, I would even say so far that I think Cadillac has more outdone my expectations up to this point in the season. So I would be very, very surprised if they get any points and don't finish last in the constructors. I think that's really what's going to happen. But we kind of knew this all along that, they brought in experienced drivers in Bottas and Perez to help get the team up and going and help give the feedback that they need to figure out how to actually run the Formula One team the right way. So it's going to be the way it is.
Yeah, I think with them, the big thing is going to be a lot of the progress you're going to see. You're not going to see on the track this year. You're going to see it. You're going to see it come maybe more to fruition next year, because a lot of the feedback they're getting is, what do we do with the next car? What do we do with the next set of things that we can then spend on with a new cost cap? Because they've had to spend pretty much everything to get here. And then they did themselves really no favors by new car, new formula, all new drivers, all new team. Welcome to Formula One, and one of the most complicated engineering situations that you've ever seen. So a lot is riding against them right at the moment. So I'm willing to give them a little bit of a break, but we'll dog them. When the brakes go on fire, like I said, go to Finland and have a campfire around the brake fires, and we'll do that.
Go.
So and again, I know kind of where the formula lives. I just hope he's doing okay, and I hope he gets his power back as soon as possible, because I know that that's a gnarly situation.
Yeah, it's a
All the
hot
best.
summer. You want that AC working.
Yeah, all the best.
The 2021 throwback with Max and Lewis, I'm going to say the same thing that I said when they had their little duels in Austria. Yes, inject that directly into my veins. That is the kind of racing that I love to see. Two of the best going at it, right on the edge, but mostly clean. Is how I like to see it. And yeah, I did not expect to see McLaren this good. McLaren has been kind of, well, I said it earlier in the show here that they're really up and down this season. We've had one race where literally neither of them started the race, and now we've had what could have been a 1-2. So you've got both ends of the spectrum here and everything in between. They've more often than not been outpaced by Ferrari and Red Bull, but that is the nature of this type of season, where it's the first season of a new regulation cycle. Is everyone's figuring it out, and everyone's bringing upgrades that are going to make big differences in pace. So you're going to see the competitive order change on a race by race basis, really, unless you're Mercedes and you're so far out in front that generally you're winning all the races and getting all the poles. But that happens too in these, new regulation seasons. So it's good to see, though. It's good to see them get one, by the midpoint of the season, give us some hope that they're on the rise, and getting to see Lando get at least one win while he is world champion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was hoping to God that the floor update would be as magical as it obviously turned out to be. But, my expectations were a little reserved going into the weekend. I was interested to see, they did actually run the Macarena wing. Let's not forget about that. We actually saw it on a car for one whole practice session, and then they decided to take it off and put it back in the garage till next race, which okay. Whatevs. I'm glad that the wing that you got worked. And they are also, this is the other thing is as much as excited as I want to get, like, are we back as McLaren fans or as a McLaren fan? I'm tempered because it's the Hungaro ring. They have, like, Ted Kravitz said it, like, after the qualifying notebook. He goes, McLaren just had to go dust off the old book that says how to go fast around the Hungaro ring. And, that's looked like kind of what they did. They are such specialists here. Even in the last formula, they were so dominant here. This was the track that, like, you could even when they're awful, and I'll go back to 2015, the Honda year, the Fernando Alonso, the awful year, they scored 29 points. Fernando Alonso finished 5th at the Hungaro ring. But this team knows this track better than probably any other one, other than maybe Silverstone. But I think they do better here. So it's kind of amazing. Now, that said, let's see what happens in the next race. Zandvoort's got a lot of the same characteristics, same type of cornering. They were also really good in Zandvoort last year. Let's see what happens. After that, then we really find out. Because if they can do it in a place like Monza, they can do it in a place like Baku, where strengths of their car is not as profound, then we'll know. But nice to see Lando get a win for sure. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of breaking of the fourth wall. If you were watching the video and it suddenly cut and Cody looked like he was about to burst, his cat apparently had a moment where he got stuck in the carpeting. So I wish he would have filmed it for content. But anyway, we're glad that he got him unstuck. Cat's fine, by the way.
He's fine. He's just really dumb.
But, we thank the cats for their contribution to our little show here. But it's all good. It's all good, man. All right. Where were we? We were going to awards. That's where we're going. So thank you all once again for all of the fan emails. Stick with us. We will hopefully have a really fun second half of the season. All right. We will start with our awards. We'll start with the rubbish. Cody, we got some different stuff. We're all kind of around the same thing, but what you got?
I think for rubbish here, you and I are on the same subject, just slightly different points on it. My rubbish award is going to go to Carlos Sainz for a pretty egregious and without that retirement from Piastri would have been possibly a race changer here for the race winner, which you never want to see that happen from a back marker. That's why we have blue flags, is to keep them from influencing what's going on, perhaps the front of the race as much as possible. But yeah, no matter what was going on with the blue flag system, blue was being shown. They should have been aware that leaders were catching up to them and that they were going to have to let them overtake. So there should have been some extra care given there, and it definitely was not. They were too focused on the battle between Sainz and Alonso, but really Sainz was the one that made the incident, pushed Piastri off the road, and I pretty clearly think it was his fault, and the fact that he doesn't want to own any of it kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth.
Well, I'll tell you this much. He's gotten memed. He's gotten very, very memed in the last little bit for that. But I'm on the same vein as you with this, but I'm from a different perspective. And mine is calling out the FIA on this one. I don't know what malfunctioned, but God damn it, it's 2026. We can add now the blue flag system to our list of stuff that the FIA has apparently just botched in the middle of a race. We can't measure time and distance in Monaco, which is still the one that's more egregious. And we still don't know that finishing order. We might find out during the summer break. I'm still banking on Christmas. But we can add the blue flag marshalling system to the other stuff that we've all ragged on the FIA for. It's just, this is so tired. And it's not, and the other part of it that makes me tired about it is I don't think it's going to change. Why? Because your damn freaking president pulled off a coup, and he's going to be the FIA president and probably till he dies. Oi.
Yeah, annoying. This one really weirds me out because it's like, I don't remember, and I've been watching Formula One religiously now for, 6 years at least. And I don't really ever remember this being quite so much of a problem in previous seasons. We've given so much shit about the steward decisions and this and that, but as far as the technical side of it, it's been pretty rock solid. And right. It just seems to be this year now where we're really running into a lot of timing issues and computer issues and all that stuff. So I got to really wonder what's going on behind the scenes that this is suddenly turning into a problem. And I really hope you're wrong on the nothing's going to get done about it side of things.
Well, the cynic in me will say that, and I'm hoping that I'm very wrong about it too, because this is the basic stuff. This is totally in their purview of stuff that they are the ones who come in and control. There's other sanctioning bodies that work in racing that don't have this. We don't talk about it nearly as much. I mean, we talk about race control in IndyCar, but we don't talk about it like we do with the FIA. And it just seems to be a week-to-week thing that there's always something that just makes us all go, we think we know what we're supposed to see week in and week out, and we're just not seeing it. And when it's the basic stuff like this, just gives me pause, man. It just makes me concerned because, and this one potentially cost Oscar Piastri a win. What if it costs somebody a real problem? What if we actually had a legit crash where a car goes airborne and we have a real problem? I feel like we're just dancing with a devil that we shouldn't need to be doing. Mm-hmm. So anyway, let's hope that this is the end of this and that the second half comes much better on that front. All right, we'll move into analysis paralysis. Cody, I'll let you go first here. Again, what you got?
My analysis paralysis is going to be Ferrari because they give us hope and then they disappoint. It seems to be the Ferrari way. I talked about it before about how they qualified very, very well, very small margins to the front. And, I'm not going to put this all on the team. The drivers had some share in this weekend, especially Lewis Hamilton. He got his penalty in qualifying that took him off the front row. And then he had his penalty during the race, which took him out of fourth place. So there's, some of it is on drivers, but the strategy thing with, trying to soft set the start, I kind of get where they were going at with it, but gosh, they had really good pace in qualifying. I would think that you showed well enough at that point to just decide, we're in a pretty good place. Maybe we'll just kind of do the expected strategy like everybody else. And, God, maybe it'll just turn out okay. It seems like Ferrari always kind of decides that they want to try to do something different when they don't really have to. Like there's kind of, we joke about it being stale, but there's kind of a reason why the vast majority of the teams end up following kind of like the same strategy or one of two strategies. And it's because, they all did their analysis and they saw that that's what works. And then Ferrari looks at those strategies that works and they're like, nah, let's try something else.
Yeah, it definitely felt like kind of we were on the hipster strategy. We were in tune to this before everybody else, and yeah, it kind of petered out there. And mine is right in your perspective here too. Mine is the soft tires were not magic for Ferraris today. And while I liked them being aggressive, that caused their second stop to come way too soon, as it turned out. Yeah, they got the undercut. And yeah, they were putting pressure, but they had enough of a gap because they were so far down because of the thing, like the whole thing, it just dominoed all the way down the strategy throughout the course of the race. And it cost them because I thought for sure, especially after Friday, that was the best car. Lando drove his ass off and got it into pole, but that was still the best car. That McLaren is not optimized yet. So by any stretch, when you put all that, new floor on the car, that thing's not all humming the way it's supposed to be. That Ferrari's had its updates for a couple of races now. So shoulda, woulda, coulda, I guess, for Ferrari. And they get my analysis paralysis there. All right. Dark horse of the day. We've got consensus here. I'll go first with this one. Nico Hülkenberg for getting off the schneid here, scoring his first couple points of the season. Audi looks like they are in contention to be annoying to the Racing Bull team for best of the rest in the second half of the season. They're now scoring some points. Going to be interesting, the latter part of the grid, who gets those minor positions in the top 10 there. Cody, what you got?
Yeah, I got the same as you. It's kind of hard to argue that someone getting their first points on the year, is not a dark horse. So, yeah, definitely happy for Nico Hülkenberg to get those points and, show that he's still got it and showing that Audi is, they mean business. It's still got a lot to do, and we knew that was going to happen because it's not like they're just going to, even with an established team, not going to just come in, buy that, and romp off to the front, But it is really good to see that they do mean business and that they are making good strides here. And I'm really hoping that Audi investment does eventually carry that team further forward.
Yeah, for sure. And that was good to see. Driver of the day. Cody, I'll let you do this one first. What you got here?
Gonna fanboy just a little bit. I'm gonna give driver of the day to Max Verstappen. And I'm going to do that because I really don't think that he deserved, the driver, I think, deserved to be on the podium. I don't think that the car did. We saw, the less than stellar qualifying that they were able to put out. Max spun in qualifying, which, how much of that was the car and how much of that was him? Don't know for sure. But, it got helped out by some of the grid penalties, but he had to hold off what seemed to be much faster cars for the majority of the race in both Ferraris, and had to battle that out. And even when I thought it was done, he still made the move after being undercut by Hamilton and got back into position to get on that podium. And then, was in the perfect place to benefit from Piastri's retirement and get even further up on that podium at second place. So, it was a little, maybe a little bit of a rough way to get there, but Max does magical things in not so great cars, and I love to see it.
All right. Well, you brought your receipts for Max. I'm going to fanboy as well. I will go Lando, and I'm going to bring some receipts here as to why. Number one, the pole position in a McLaren car that is not optimized by any stretch of the imagination. And two, the way he got this, even though he made it hard on himself, this could have been he leads from pole, he makes 2 pit stops, and he wins by 30 seconds. That's just not his style, apparently. We just can't have one of those very often. You pointed out in the pre-show, Mexico last year is probably the only one where I think I've ever seen him do it. But yeah, they're never easy. And he had to do this one the hard way. He had to do an overcut at a track where the undercut is definitely the preferred way to go. And he pumped in those fast laps. It was like 24-1, 24-3, 24-3, 24-4. That set of 5 laps won him this race. Yes, he gets helped out by the Piastri Sainz kerfuffle. That's definitely part of it. It would have been really close on that pit stop sequence had that not happened. But when the opportunity presents itself, you got to take advantage. And for doing it the hard way, I'm going to give Lando driver of the day. All right, so we will move into predictions. And yeah, the McLaren car being good screwed us all up. Let's put it that way. We tied again. We did this whole thing where we tie again, and we basically tied again because we got the set of free points. You got 2 free points because somebody has to get a point for the quality time and somebody has to get a point for the race time. Cody, you got it for the quality time. I got it for the race time. Yay, there's 1-1. And then we all got the prop bet because as close as sometimes Lando and Oscar got, they didn't touch. And the drivers who did touch were not on the same team. So we got a free point there, which we kind of gave ourselves so we wouldn't have had 0-0. So yay us, 2-2, and our predictions basically sucked. I'm still somehow in front at the end of this first half, 2, 1, and 3. We've tied 3 times. Maybe we have to add another category so we don't tie.
I was actually thinking that earlier. I was like, man, we have now, and to be fair, we have not done this every weekend because of, things coming up and traveling and all that stuff. But we've had 6 instances now of this game and we've tied more than we've not tied. So yeah, we might need to find some way to mix that up a little bit.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a special tiebreaker category or something next round.
There you go.
And it only comes into effect if we tie like this. And it's going to be something where, we have to pick one. There's only one answer that's going to be more right than the other. Maybe it's where Fernando Alonso finishes.
There you go.
That might be a good one, for Aston Watch. But anyway, that's where we were at the predictions. We'll try to do better next time out. We have a break. We have a long break. We will not be back at this until the last final week of August, as it turns out. So mandatory 2, there's 1 week of regular travel for the teams, then a mandatory 2-week shutdown. Then they fire it back up and we'll head to Zandvoort. That's where our next race will be, but it's going to be a little bit. My only thing is we're going to take the break. We're going to enjoy it. We're going to watch some other forms of racing, or at least I will try to. I'll try to catch up a little bit with MotoGP and what's going on there because their break will end before F1's does. And Cody, what you got?
Well, I was just going to say, I think maybe when we come back and have our next preview, maybe we'll talk about that new IndyCar a little bit.
Yeah,
it doesn't look too much different. It looks kind of like a sexier version of the current car. But God, they've been running that car for so many years now. It's refreshing to have anything different, honestly.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a segment on IndyCar. There's so much that's been happening with drivers that we all know, and there's the new car. I was actually, before we started this, I was actually trying to watch a video on the new car to try to learn the specs and all that stuff. It doesn't look dramatically different, but inside it's definitely going to be dramatically different. It's going to be a lot lighter. It's going to be optimized for the aero screen, which is what I think the biggest thing that's holding IndyCar back was what it did to when they put the aero screen on, but the aero screen's important. Anyway, whole lot of thoughts. We will put them down on paper and we will try to talk about them maybe in our next preview. We'll also stand by for F1 weird driver news. Lord only knows that rumor mill has probably gone to the nth degree given this race. If anything breaks, if there is an occasion where we have to do an emergency pod, we'll do our best to bring it to you. Until then, take care of each other, god dang it. It's a crazy world. This world got crazy for us in just the last 48 hours again. So we're all just trying to make this planet spin across everything, man. Keep each other close. Keep your friends close. Keep your enemies even closer, maybe. I don't know. But whatever. Take care of each other. Stay safe. And dang it, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at outlapf1 podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.